Jack.
Hi.
Man, what are you so intent on?
Well, this is one of my biggest finds.
Marilyn Monroe?
That would have been. No, I found 42 pictures of the crime scene that nobody had ever seen.
You've got 42 pictures of Marilyn Monroe's death scene?
Let's say I had 42 pictures of the Marilyn Monroe death scene.
You had them?
Yes.
Tell me about it.
Well, back on my route, I had a guy that bought gold in Southern California. His name is Dale. That's his real name. Dale the gold buyer. And when he found something in paper or photographs, he'd call me.
Okay.
He called me one day and he said, I have 42 pictures of Marilyn Monroe that the lady had. I said, no kidding. He said, yeah. He says, they're the crime scene. I said, what do they want for them? And he told me. I said, buy them. And I said, I'll be right there. So I took off and went over and I picked them up. And I couldn't believe it. There was a Rolleiflex camera. There were 42 pictures and a bunch of IDs, press IDs and stuff like that. And I looked at them, and it had pictures of Pat Newcomb, who was her press agent, Eunice Murray. The pictures were beyond belief.
Who took these pictures?
I think that it was supposed to be a reporter. I think that he may have been somebody more than a reporter. I think at that particular point in time, everybody was watching her. The Secret Service, the police, she was wired, the unions, even Hoffa was keeping an eye on her. Sam Giancana, all those gangsters. And I think that the pictures that I sold told a big, big, big story. What we did, and I was young, and I really didn't know how to go about this too well, but I called the Marilyn Monroe fan club in Hollywood.
Okay.
How stupid that was.
Well, they must have been excited to get
Oh
those
yeah,
pictures.
they tried to get me to donate them, and I wouldn't do it. I knew better than to do that. So within days, I'm getting so many phone calls that I had to shut my phone down. We got one call in particular from back east, New Jersey, New York, New something. And there were two guys, they gave me their home phone numbers, and we called them, and we made arrangements for them to come down and meet at Musso and Frank's. It's a little famous restaurant in Hollywood. So me and my partner, Dale, we went down there to meet them, and there were these two guys dressed in real fancy suits, older guys. And when we sat down at the table, my partner said here, Dale, the two men from back east said over here that we're going to buy them. And over here sat Jack Clemens. Jack Clemens was the first cop on the scene. You know, he went right to the scene, the murder scene.
Now, how did he get at this dinner? I thought it was just with these guys that were going to buy the pictures.
Well, they said they were going to bring some people for me to talk to because, you know, we were negotiating. And there sat Jack Clemens, the officer, and right there sits Robert Slatzer, who said he was married to her, and some books say that it was annulled by Fox. But I sat there for 2 hours, eating spaghetti, drinking wine, and talking to him and asking questions. And the photographs that we had were just about beyond belief. And I'm going to tell you about some of the photographs that I had that were really, really interesting. One of them was a picture of an officer and Pat Newcomb standing outside the gate of Marilyn Monroe's house, and he has her by the arm. I've seen pictures of her and the officer, but never the one with him with her arm. And then there's a guy climbing over the fence, another reporter, who appeared to be a reporter with his leg draped over the fence. Well, most of them say that she was, there's a lot of stories, like she spent the night there, Peter Lawford brought her down, and it's just really all messed up. Eunice Murray, Pat Newcomb was a press agent, but that picture of her was more like the officer was restraining her, trying to keep her from going in like she's trying to get in. Now, another picture I had Eunice Murray, who was her nurse, getting in her car. It was a convertible. And on the other side, her nephew, who was opening up the door for Pat Newcomb, and she was getting in. A lot of people say that Peter Lawford brought her down and dropped her off at the house the night before, the night that she died. Eunice Murray's son-in-law that's opening up the door, he was also the gardener, he spent the night there the night that she died. He's opening up the door, and Pat Newcomb is sliding in the car between Eunice Murray and him. So, she was leaving with him, and most people think that that she had been picked up by Peter Lawford, a lot of people. So, the story that the nephew told, the son-in-law told, while he was at the house, is that him and Eunice Murray, the housekeeper and nurse, per se, for the doctor that took care of her, were told to leave the house. Robert Kennedy and two men come down and told him to leave the house and go next door. So him and Eunice went next door. This was the first report that he had told anybody. They went next door. They left about 10 minutes later. This was his testimony. His story that he gave to the police. So him and Eunice Murray come back to the house, and Marilyn Monroe was comatose. Well, in talking to Jack Clemens had always thought that it was murder, because the pills in her room, there were no, we had pictures of the pills also. The pictures of the pills in her room that she took, she died of an overdose. There was no glass of water or any water for her to take all those pills with. They're a little hard to take,
sure,
without water in her room, and they said she hadn't come out of her room. If you really want to hear some interesting stuff, that's part of it. But her I think that's son-in-law, that was the gardener, spent the night there. I couldn't figure out what the heck he was doing spending the night there, But there's a lot of conflicting stories. Jack Clemens, that officer, told me that they had threatened to get rid of him, and that his life had been threatened when he said that he thought that it was murder. And Robert Slatzer probably told one of the most interesting stories, and that story was about how she died. There was enough amphetamine speed in her body, and you can read this anywhere on the internet, to kill 2 or 3 people. Yet, those pills, there was no residue in the stomach lining. And one of the questions that's asked is why, as light-skinned as she was, if somebody injected, fluid into her, amphetamines to kill her, why there was no bruises. But there's a good reason for that, according to Robert Slatzer, who is her lover and possibly married to her for 3 days. He writes all those books about her. But we sat there for hours looking at that, talking back and forth, and several hours. It was I really enjoyed it. These 2 people, they bought the pictures from me and Dale and gave us a contract. And we were supposed to get a percentage of the first books that were made. They were supposedly doing a book. They paid us. We signed a contract. Dale still has the contract to this day. After that meeting, those 2 guys disappeared. We couldn't get in touch with them anymore. We never heard anything more from them.
Are their names on the contract?
Yes, but I'm not so sure those are the real names. We did a little bit of research. There was never a book done. I've never seen any of these pictures. If anybody up there's ever seen a picture of Pat Newcomb sliding in the car with Eunice Murray at Marilyn Monroe's house at the crime scene, with the gardener opening up the door, putting her in the car, I'd sure like to know if they've seen it. Or the one at the front with the officer grabbing Pat Newcomb like he's kind of wrestling with her. They say a lot of things about so many different things. We had one of the little tiger that was sent to her. There's a little tiger. Some people think it was one of the Kennedys, the women, sent it to her and said they were going to hurt her. I think it was the day before. But our pictures were the earliest pictures, and that little tiger wasn't in the same position as when the other police photographs were taken of it. It was back in the back of the house by the pool. We also had a shot of the drugs on her table. We also had a shot of that old station wagon that they hauled her body in. Some people said she died, and then they took her to the hospital, and then they brought her back. She died at the hospital. They brought her back to the house. It's really a messed up thing. But those pictures that we had were some of the most amazing pictures I've ever known and ever seen. And as I get older, and I think about it, and I see all these articles on the internet and stuff, Robert Slatzer looked at me and I said, how come she didn't have a bruise from the injection? He said that she was injected in the colon with amphetamines. And he thought that Robert Kennedy did it, from Wofford. And that was the last thing he said to me. He was a pretty interesting guy. He really liked Marilyn Monroe. There's a lot more to this and a lot more pictures. But the truth about it is, I got to sit there with Jack Clemens, the officer that comes to the crime scene, and Robert Slatzers, and these two gentlemen dressed men in black is what we always call them afterwards. And we got to ask them questions for a long time, both very interesting. Jack Clemens' life was threatened over it, his job, and Robert Slatzer the same way. You can read his books. By the way, if you look up his obituary, I just looked it up the other day, Robert Slatzer, it says unknown causes.
So how much did you get paid for the pictures, if you don't mind me asking?
It was a big figure. I'd rather not give it because of Dale. It was a big figure for that time, but it was a small figure for what they contained. It was unbelievable. I had a picture of probably 30 people going in the house with cameras. They were apparently reporters. And I had a picture of all these faces that I'd really like to know who they are now that I'm older and have figured stuff out. Also, we had close-up pictures of the house. I have no idea why he was taking pictures of the house close up. But then I got to thinking, they didn't have wireless stuff back then. They had wires when they bugged the house. And I read stuff where the Hoffas and the Unions and the Kennedys and private investigators and Fox, who she had worked for, that they were all watching her. And the next day, she was supposed to announce that she was having an affair with John Kennedy. And she was also, she had hopes to be in the First Lady. That's a poor lady. I can't believe she even believed that. And I know a little bit more, but if anybody's ever seen those pictures, I'd really like to know. I'm looking here, I made some notes. Oh, I had pictures of, Joe DiMaggio, his son, and Dr. Greenson. He was the doctor. Man, he's a shady character. But they believe that doctor, who's a psychiatrist, actually injected her in the colon. That was one of the last things that Robert Slatzer told me, with amphetamines, and killed her. And he believed that it was for the Kennedys. That was what he told me. And all of this stuff I've told you pretty well makes sense. That's just amazing. I had pictures of DiMaggio's son, too, at the funeral. It was really interesting stuff.
A lot of stuff. Was it all in that one roll of film, or was it from different people?
Well, the pictures were individuals. They were 8x10s, and they were taken with their camera. And I guess they've been blown up. We did have negatives. And I'm just curious whatever happened to the pictures. I'm wondering I looked all over the internet and everything I could do to find out. And I found one picture with that officer that's similar. We really don't know what happened there. But when you get something nice, go real slow with it. Is all I
That's the
I
lesson,
can say.
huh? And be wary of the men in black.
Yeah, I don't understand what happened there. I really don't. And maybe they were just a couple guys that didn't get in touch with us. But they did disappear. We never heard another thing. We never got the first 200 copies of the book signed by everybody that was alive. We never got our percentage from a book that we don't know that was written. If anybody knows about a book that was written with those pictures, let me know. I want to know.
Hey, but on the bright side, you got a good chunk of money, and you're still alive today.
Yeah, that's my wife said that at the time. She said, "You're probably lucky I sold them." But, Dale and Terry, that's his brother. They've been buying gold for years. They were real disappointed in it. They were real, as was I. And Dale and Terry did take copies of all the pictures because he didn't trust those guys anyway. So there are copies of those pictures out there. If they ever pop up, at least we could prove that it was ours.
All right. Well, thanks for that interesting story, Jack. You never know what you're going to run into on your route, huh?
Yeah, I couldn't believe that. And at the time, it wasn't that important to me. But, as the years went on and I got experience, a person, when they find something, should go real slow with it when it's something like that.
It's a good tip.
Yeah, it's a real good tip. I wish somebody had told me that before that. But I was anxious. It was exciting, too, to get that much attention from something you found.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Jack. Thanks a lot, man.
You bet.
Have a good one. See ya.